Good morning and thank you very much for joining us. I am Iyori Folarin. We apologize for coming on, way beyond schedule, circumstances beyond our control, and we are here. Had something of a technical disaster ourselves. Incidentally, we wanted to talk about, disasters actually, and we have the situation in Benue State on our mind, where the governor, Samuel Ortom, has actually warned that, peradventure, we could have a food shortage on our hand. You know about Benue being something of a food basket. Farmlands are underwater, in 12 local governments. Over 100,000 people have been displaced. And these things happen. These disasters, I don't know if this is a natural disaster, talking about floods, but then we have Dr. Olufemi Okeosoyin-Tolu with us this morning. He's a man you probably still remember from his time in Lagos State government when he was working on similar emergencies and crises. He's senior technical advisor on disaster risk management in the office of the Vice President. Good morning, Dr. Osoyin-Tolu, and thank you for coming on.
Good morning.
Indeed. And we also have Evans Ufeli, who is a legal practitioner and a public affairs analyst. And he's been looking up some aspects of environmental laws and how they impact or they can come into play when we have situations like this. Thank you very much for coming on as well.
Thank you. Good morning.
Indeed. Thanks, Evans. Now, Femi, could you sort of situate this for us? Over in America, they're worrying about their own flood. It's in the news every day. This is no small flood also. If it is covering up to 12 local government areas, 100,000 people have been displaced. And you, I would believe, have somehow been quite engaged with this. Give me an assessment of how bad it really is. I mean, is this, as they categorize storms, is there a way you experts categorize disasters like this? And is it way up there? Is it a moderate one, an average one? I don't know that there can be an average disaster, but you get what I'm saying.
Well, when you look at a lot of factors in place, we realize that the flood disaster that is going on in Benue is a severe flood disaster. Because when you want to categorize flood, you can say mild, moderate, or severe. But if you look at it holistically, the economic impacts, the health challenges that will be associated with it, you will realize that what we are dealing with, what the federal government has taken ownership of, is that we are having a severe flood disaster on our hand. And definitely, we are really on top of the challenges.
Okay, we're going to have pictures because you can't talk about this kind of a thing without showing pictures. So in due course, we shall be seeing those pictures. But for the moment, Evans, okay, Now this, as I said, it does cover up to 12 local governments. So this is a picture. And if it was limited to this, then we would say, okay, we were on top of this. But these are probably some of the milder pictures, because 100,000 people as an estimate that we are hearing. As I was going to come to you, Evans, there are laws around the world and so in our country as well, environmental laws, regulations that seek to help. What, in your opinion, is the state of that? Can these impact in any meaningful way disasters like this?
Yes, you see, the laws, first of all, have their trusts from the urban and regional planning structure of the state where, these kind of disasters happen. Okay, when you look at planning and structure in building, I know sometimes the flood could be beyond building positions and all that. But then there are
blocking drains and all those kind of things.
There are contributory factor, human contributory factor to the extent of damage. Okay, you could have flood and not have damage, but where humans have contributed in one way or the other. Okay, in terms of probably inappropriate building structure, inappropriate disposal of waste. That's
the planning part of it.
Yes, inappropriate disposal of waste, and so many other things. This will also, in a way, because if you look at, they have a you see how the water, the pictures we saw, the waters were so clean.
Okay, in America.
Yeah, in America. But when it happened in Lagos here some months back, we saw the water, we saw the debris. Okay? Before now, we had said Loma is powerful, they've been taking waste away. But you know, flood exposes a lot of things. It diminishes a government. So, and when it happens, you begin to see the lapses that are hitherto hidden. You understand? So my call is that we must be cautious of the, because even experts have predicted that at some point in human history, the world is going to, some part of the world is going to be too cold to live, and some part is going to be too hot to live in because of environmental factors, because of global warming and the changes of cosmic administration and things that is going on around the world. So we must begin to look at it objectively. Here is not to blame anyone for the disaster, but then the factors, the contributory factors, contributory negligence of the inhabitants of communities must be checked and worked on.
Femi, when you said the federal government has taken ownership, I understand what you mean. This is probably, maybe by that you mean that this cannot be left to the state government. It's beyond that. It's become a federal issue. What exactly is being done, and what are the successes or challenges as a result, now that you've come in?
Well, let's look at it from the primary level to the second level and the tertiary level. Flood is one of these risks that we're exposed to in Nigeria. And the federal government has an agency that have predicted that or forecast what is going to happen in terms of our rainfall within Nigeria. However, we have built up, because when you look at all these things, the impact is to the grassroots. We have built up the emergency system in such a way that all our states now have a functional, effective state emergency management agency. And look at what is happening at Benue. You can see free flow of information from the states to the federal, to the extent that the National Emergency Management Agency, under the leadership of Engineer Mustafa Mahaja, has moved in there representing the federal government based on the directive given by His Excellency, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Muhammadu Buhari. And you can see that the people that were affected, we are doing what we call needs assessment. We are doing the risk analysis, risk mapping, to the extent that you can see that the level of the water is now decreasing. Okay. And secondly, when you are looking at flood,
how is it decreasing, or maybe why? Is it as a result of intervention, or is nature taking its course?
No.
Sometimes you let fires burn themselves out.
No. It's as a result of intervention. It's as a result of intervention. We have started doing fine-tuning the drainage system in there. We are the people that are vulnerable to it. We've moved them in, and you know that flood disaster is always associated with health challenges. All the hospitals have been kitted up because we realize that cholera, dysentery are associated with this, and you can see that the Chief Executive Officer of Benue State has started giving a warning alert that, look, we might have agricultural challenges. And with that, the Federal Ministry of Agriculture has taken ownership of it too. So we are moving, we are planning towards how we are going to curtail the agricultural challenges that could be associated with that disaster. And if you look at it holistically, you can discover that the morbidity and mortality that could be associated with that type of disaster has been greatly reduced. And as I'm speaking here, the agencies, the State Emergency Management Agency of Benue, the National Emergency Management Agency of federal level are on the ground, and working around with the people.
Even if we don't have the pictures, because you're involved, I wonder where up to 100,000 Benue citizens affected directly by this. are being moved to. How easy is that?
It's not that easy.
Yes.
It's one of the greatest challenges that we are facing. But one way or the other, we're able to create relief camps for them.
Okay.
We are able to advise the community, people, the host community, that they can take care of their brothers too. And right now we are doing needs assessment. In a short time, we'll be giving them a lot of relief
Because
assistance.
I was going to, and not least of which will have to be health. You have situations like this, you've already spoken, you're a doctor yourself. Even if you don't know anything, you know that cholera is an immediate risk.
Definitely.
Then experts will know that, oh, beyond cholera that everybody knows, probably there are some other challenges as well.
Leptospirosis, dysentery, but we're taking...
So we're able to meet these challenges.
We are able to meet. We put what we call red alerts. And when you have red alert, the primary healthcare system has been taking care of that. The secondary care system has been taking care of that. And the Federal Ministry of Health.
Look what was it? I mean, that is chest high.
Yes.
That is chest high in this case.
Yes.
You know.
And you can see that we started giving out a lot of information how to tackle this. We have our emergency number being put in place that, look, if you see your people droning, key to us. And we have our field men on the ground.
How about, was this such that people were warned and so they could evacuate before it got as bad as this? Or were people being rescued? Again, I don't want to do it, but I'm comparing with the pictures we're inundated with on CNN of the Harvey case, where you see boats, rescue efforts, sometimes helicopters are brought in. Yeah, we're not quite the same. So, but in our own way too, in terms of rescue, are you satisfied?
Well, in terms of rescue, I would say I'm satisfied, because the State Emergency Management Agency of Benue State are on the ground. And the key thing in there is that the Chief Executive Officer, who is the governor of the state, is really in charge of the whole situation. So one way or the other, and is collaborating with the federal government. So we are all working hand in hand, including the local government. With that, we've taken ownership of what is happening. Our challenges over there is well clear to us that we might have agricultural challenges, we might have health challenges. We've informed the people that are involved, and if you know your problem, you'll be able to provide solutions to it. We know our problem in there, we are providing solutions to it, and we are moving empirically and strategically.
Mr. Ufili was talking earlier about legislation, and we know that in so many different areas of our life, sometimes they say the legislation needs to be reformed. Sometimes the legislation is such that it was created maybe a couple of decades ago when the situation was not as bad as this, and sometimes needs updating. Nowadays, are you happy with all that the legislation provides? Because oftentimes funds, equipment, that kind of a thing, you will hear that, well, we know what to do, but money has not been voted. Are we saying that we don't have that kind of a problem because we've learned from previous examples in other parts of the country?
Well, we do have that kind of problem. Take, for example, what is happening in Lagos State. A few months ago, we experienced what we call the flood disaster in Lagos State. And you can see what the chief executive of the state did. Immediately, he appointed an engineer to be the chief executive officer of public works and drainage, which is very, very important. So, if you look at that appointment, he has taken ownership in terms of mitigating any form of obstruction of the drainage. Because he now provided what we call the political will. Because when you are talking about this laws are theirs, we are ready to enforce, but don't forget that this government we are operating is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. So the attitude of our people, the behavioral attitude of our people is very, very important.
Luckily, we have our man, Sifon Essien, who is our correspondent, and actually he's en route now, if I understand. He's en route from Abuja to Makurdi to physically assess, the extent of the situation. Good morning, Sifon.
Good morning, Larry.
Thank you very much, for coming on. You are familiar, because you've been, as it were, at ground zero. Give me an impression as to how bad it is. We know it is not good. We know that over 100,000 people have been displaced, but your eyewitness account.
Yes, well over 110,000 persons have been displaced in these floods. After 2 weeks of downpour across close to 22 localities in Benue State. Even right now, we are on the road from Nasarawa entering the part of Benue and getting to the point they call Gidan Sule. A road linking both states has caved in. Almost the entire road from the right to the left. This happened after a downpour on Saturday that lasted till the wee hours of Sunday. Lives were lost, but the exact figures we could yet not confirm. But rescue operatives, road construction experts are trying to see how they can get, manage the situation so commuters from Benue State and those from Nasarawa State using the roads can pass. But that is just a consequence of flooding.
Any bridges involved? I understand. Any bridges damaged as a result of this, or are bridges still available for use?
The road we just passed, for instance, according to those who appear to be experts at the scene, they said there was a design defect, that there was meant to be a culvert to allow water flow from either side, but that was not part of the design. So the road, the head flood, forced its way from either side and caused the road to cave in.
Being there yourself, and it's a continuing story for you and other colleagues covering it. What are the challenges that you hear people voice in this situation here? I mean, equipment, relief equipment, 100,000 people needing over, as you said, over 110,000 people needing to be evacuated. What are the difficulties like? What are the camps that are being taken?
Of course, we understand the challenges the country is faced with insurgency in the northeast and the burgeoning number of IDPs. The camps are swelling over there. So resources are thinly spread. Now, we're looking at another crisis at hand. 2 camps have been opened in Makurdi to accommodate these persons. But, to have those camps, basic supplies, amenities have to be put in place. And many of those things will take quite some time. So it's moving at snail speed. The fact that the president has ordered the Emergency Management Agency to swing into action in collaboration with their counterparts in the state. But the feelers we get is that basic amenities are not in place in this camp to accommodate the people who continually, flood into the camp following their displacement from their homestead.
Do you have any? Finally, do you have any word on Good Samaritans, NGOs, anybody donating to the effort that is helpful? I imagine any little bit will help.
Well, basically, the institution that has made its effort public has been the Nigerian Air Force, humanitarian efforts in managing the situation. You understand that Nigerian Air Force has a base in Makurdi, which is home to its Tactical Air Command. So it's crucial for it to be good citizen of the state and to have rolled out its humanitarian efforts to those who have been displaced. Aside that, we also gather that a couple of humanitarian and agencies under the guise of non-governmental agencies, NGOs, are equally cashing in to help out. But the enormity of the challenge is one which the governor has actually cried out for global attention. Okay,
global attention. In other words, the governor feels that if we're not careful, there's a danger of being overwhelmed by this.
Apparently, from his statement, it's something that has overwhelmed the state. The resources required to, put in a quick exercise and then a long-term solution to the problem is one which one of the commissioners put at over 300 billion, and that would include dredging the River Niger to allow it to take on more water, because as it does stand, water outflow from the water outflow from the Benue River. The Benue River actually constitutes part of the problem, or is a larger cause of the problem that the people are experiencing. Farmland, houses, everything happens to it.
Indeed. NEMA, the National Emergency Management Agency, what do you think about their efforts, and how are they making an impact?
Well, to that extent, yes. The initial report was that when this thing happened in the middle of last week, residents and indeed other stakeholders in the state reached out to NEMA, and that proposed the presidential that they have to move in supplies from.
Well. Stefan, thank you very, very much. So you can resume your journey. I understand you're en route to Makurdi. Stay safe. Thank you very much. So, okay, dismal picture. That's what you expect in this kind of a situation. It's what it is. These things happen. We can prepare for them, but we see that even the best prepared people in the world, I don't know, sometimes that's why they call disasters.
Definitely.
That's why they call disasters, when nature intervenes.
But
he talked about the dredging, and I'm coming back to you now, Evan. He talked about one of those long-term things might be the dredging of the River Niger, that kind of a thing. Again, we go back to what are there rules? Because even, well, I was going to be too colloquial and say messing, but interfering with water bodies like that, it's not something you can just do casually. All sorts of impact assessment will probably have to be made. Legislation is not clogging up anything at all, as far as you know.
No, coincidentally, that state, we have the River Benue there.
Yes.
Okay, which also pose certain danger. Okay. Now, but what I want to talk about here is that the ecological funds that we save and distribute to states, I think instead of using it for a rescue mission, because that is what we do, why don't we use it to do the dredging? Why don't we use it proactively? So that, because we need to improve more on our proactive effort to disaster and also rescue mission, because if you look at it, NEMA they're talking about, I know there was a time ago where certain allegations were made that NEMA had just one helicopter and it wasn't working and things like that. I don't know the situation now, you understand? But I think we must use these ecological funds wisely. And when governors take security votes, part of it is for things like this, because a disaster is a threat to security, a threat to the ecosystem. Okay, so I'm looking at situations where these funds, because there are laws already on ground that have provided for all these kind of disaster and defects. So what we should do is to manage those funds wisely. You understand? Because from the pictures I saw and from the stories I've read or through, I think the rescue mission is not as strong as it should be, because I have seen situations where people are just trapped in. There's no rescue. Some people have been luckily rescued, yes, but so many persons are also trapped in there, and there's no statistics.
Peculiar situations here.
And if you look at the number of persons, trapped in this situation is a huge number. And they also, coincidentally, Benue State also had different other kind of disaster. The Fulani men were there. I mean, before now, they are just coming out from that, and now you have flood. Nobody knows what is coming up next, but what we should do is that as a government, as a people, we must, I don't think lack of funds is the issue here. And when we have this kind of disaster, we must devote those funds, ecological materials and funds, to make sure we tame the situation, because it is not out of hand. It can be arrested, the situation can be arrested, and we should do that to make sure that our people
no doubt, as Femi has been saying, He said the federal government has, you know, sort of assumed responsibility, you know, to see what can be done.
Not only assume responsibility, we've taken ownership. Look at the dredging, the Niger Delta that we are talking about now is in 2017 budget, and the Federal Ministry of Works with the Federal Ministry of Environment, they are looking at that holistically. We've done a risk.
Yeah, I know.
We've done what we call risk analysis and risk mapping on that. But the key thing in there,
all of that is that
the key thing in there, which is very important.
One moment, Femi, because I know you being a technocrat, a big government official, I understand that this is going to be very important to you, but there are people right there now that are actually going through the pangs of this, farmlands underwater, maybe livestock, property, people just don't know where they're going to sleep. So it's all right, the paperwork, the budget and all of that, but in terms of the people whose lives have been turned upside down, you know, the human angle.
It is.
You know, the human angle, you know, that is...
We sympathize with them. But the key thing that we need to appreciate is that before a disaster occurs, there's what we call early warning.
Early warning. One moment, you continue with this. Yusuf is calling in from Biu. Good morning, Yusuf.
Good morning, Uncle Yori.
Good morning, sir.
I'm calling you from Biu, Borno State.
Okay. So please go ahead. Yes.
Please, I would like to contribute to this.
Oh, we'd like you to. Go ahead, please. Sure. Go ahead, please.
The issue about flooding in Benue. Main problem of government is that to have there is normally is to have a situation whereby people are there having a lot of problems and they will come down to people and look, but while people are having a lot of problems that requires their attention. And I wonder what kind of leadership we have in this world, and I wonder how people are behaving, our leaders are behaving these days. Uncle Yori, thank you for the good job with you and the gentleman in the studio. I'm a first-time caller, please. I normally used to call with trying to contribute in so many platforms that you people used to. You morning, all the other...
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Uncle Larry. Thank you very much.
Right. Okay. So, thank you very much, Yusuf. You know, please continue.
Yeah, the key thing in here, before a disaster occurs, there's what we call early warning.
Do we have early warning systems?
Yes, we have early warning systems.
Did we know about the extent of this flood?
No, not really. But the meteorological agency has predicted that, look, we are going to have this type of rainfall in here. We try as much as possible to inform our people, to disseminate information to the grassroots.
Right now, from those early warning systems, apart from this one that has already happened, are you alerted now, going by meteorological reports and the EUWS that you're talking about, are you keeping your eyes on certain other areas?
Definitely.
Now,
there are certain areas that are prone to flood.
For example?
For example, in Lagos State, there are certain areas in Lagos State that are prone to flood. And one way or the other, we've given early warning that, look, we've experienced flash flood. We are going to the critical period. By the middle of September, we are going to be in the critical period. And that critical period, people are prone to flood. So what we...
by the way, do you think Lagos, you're no stranger to Lagos, having worked in this capacity, similar capacity in Lagos before, are you satisfied that Lagos is prepared for that, period?
Lagos State have even moved a step forward by creating a portfolio and appointing a seasonal technocrat in there to become the special advisor to the governor on public works and drainage. It's a very key thing.
It is. Let me take Mr.
Very
George.
Key thing.
Good morning, Mr. George. Thank you for calling in.
Good morning, Uncle Yori.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning to your guest.
Good morning.
Uncle Yori, I would like to ask the gentleman from NEMA this question. Is NEMA just restricted to management of when emergencies happen only?
Mr. George, could I, maybe when we was at the beginning, actually Dr. Femi Okeosonyintolu is not from NEMA. He is the Senior Technical Advisor on Disaster Risk Management in the Office of the Vice President.
All right, but I want to believe that you have an idea of the question I'm asking. NEMA, I've never heard NEMA talking about preventive measures. You hear people, you see people building on drainages, you see people blocking gutters and several things that make floods to become a disaster. I would have expected that NEMA, as an emergency management agency, would be warning people against things that can cause disaster. But they don't do that.
But
is it that they are
Mr. George, he was just talking about having early warning systems in place that he says is actually working. In fact, that was what he said. That was the topic he was on before your call came in.
Okay, the warning that he is talking about is the one we normally hear from NIMET. That, okay, this year or in a month to come, there will be excessive rain. But the one I'm talking about is preventive measures.
Okay.
If flood, if an area is flooded and drainages are free, chances are that it will not become an emergency situation. These are the kind of warnings I'm talking about. If NEMA should, if it is not part of their function, I think it should be reviewed.
Okay.
For them to warn people.
Thank you very much for calling in, Mr. George.
Yeah, NEMA, National Emergency Management Agency, has been effective and efficient. They are working with all the key stakeholders, and NIMET is one of the key stakeholders of NEMA. So when NIMET is predicting, giving warnings about what is going to happen, giving forecasts about what it is, they are working in collaboration with NEMA. But the key thing in here, NEMA is not, National Emergency Management Agency is not a primary responder. We have our primary responder in each of the states, which is the State's Emergency Management Agency that coordinates all these primary responders. What the job of NEMA is to build the State Emergency Management Agency in each of the 36 states to be more effective and efficient. And that is what they are doing.
Okay. Ebuka in Kaduna State, good morning. I beg your pardon. Ebuka, good morning.
Uncle, good morning.
Good morning, sir. Thank you very much.
And good morning to your guests at the studio.
Good morning.
Yeah, Mr. Femi is in a typical government agency of speaker, with which he's talking. He said there's early warning and early signal and all that, which Mr. George rightly pointed out. They said there will be rainfall at a certain period of the year, but it was not specified where there will be the rainfall. Nobody mentioned it is going to be flooding in Benue State, it's going to flood.
Did we lose you? I think we lost you, but I think we get your drift. I'm surprised you said that because meteorologists, they're not soothsayers. They actually work with maps. They work with satellites. It's very, very scientific.
Yeah, they are scientific, but there's one thing we are not doing, and that is the Office of the National Orientation Agency. Okay. The news is not, when you say they've been giving science warnings, how many people get to hear and know about this? There must be a campaign, an overwhelming campaign.
On the target audience. When these warnings are these?
I said more, like if you people in the hinterlands,
people, or is it for the expert
people.
agencies?
It's for the expert agencies.
For the agencies that
the agencies who forecast.
Yes.
Okay, when this forecast is made,
yes,
the Office of the National Orientation Agency must be able to take
I get what you're saying.
And spread it to
not to mention the Office of the Information, Minister of Information.
Yes,
to disseminate this information.
So that people will be, because a lot of people are not aware. Because except for what he's saying. Most people are not aware. That's what I'm saying.
Sorry, so maybe just to simplify it, for example, we have 100,000 people displaced, all these farmlands in more than 12 local governments underwater in Makurdi. If people had known beforehand that it was going to be on this scale, because oftentimes you hear warnings, from CNN, for example, everybody that has CNN hears warning that this storm is going to hit in 5 days. it's going to be at this ferocity. It's going to be this. Do not stay where you are. So, I think that's the kind of thing that you're saying.
I think they've been doing that.
Okay.
They move it to the state's emergency management agency, which is within the state.
So that's to answer the gentleman who called in that.
Yes.
Are we sure they are specific and therefore useful enough?
It's useful.
Do we know where they're going to hit?
How many people get to know about it? That's the question.
The point is that people have to key in. People have to change their behavioral attitude. Don't say that, oh, it should not be my turn. May God forbid. God will save us. No. The point is that we should be strategic about it.
You seem to be suggesting that the information is out there, but people don't take it seriously.
That is it.
Preferring to say, well, I cover it with the blood of Jesus.
For example, they inform. They inform you that you shouldn't build a building on a floodplain area, and you started building.
And government gives them approval.
No. You have to be very careful.
Governments don't take those things down immediately.
We have to be very careful about that. We have to be very careful.
Well, what kind of care?
When we are talking about government, who are the people in the government?
You can't build a house overnight.
It is the government of the people, by the people.
So we are not
help. We are not animals.
So people should be able to help and go and say that. Come and look at this man.
Come and look at this thing.
That is assuming I know that place is a channel that it should not be built on.
It's under the map.
Okay. I want to bring in Larry in Ijebu. Good morning, sir. I think I lost Larry in Ijebu. See if you can get in again, sir. Okay, so what you seem to be saying, Femi, is that, look, when, Evan said that the warnings might not be pointed enough, you are saying that you beg to differ.
Yeah.
That our people, sometimes their attitude is what it is.
That is it.
And thereby lay themselves open to full and unnecessary impact of such calamities. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Look at what happened at Ikoju area. There was a time that we normally have flood disaster that always affect the Ikoju area. We gave up a lot of early warning systems, and the key thing is that the people take ownership of it. And right there, we are not experiencing flood in there because the way they are building their houses is far different.
You took the information to them.
Yes.
In this case, look at it. We always take information to them.
Okay.
Because that is why the national...
And then we need to monitor. Our people are what they are. I'm so sorry to say it.
The Benue issue was information taken to them.
Let us take government, for instance. Papa Ojo, the expressway. I'm seeing some work going on.
Yeah.
Do not, because government or whoever is in charge loves you more than you love yourselves, do not try to cross a 10-lane expressway. It is illegal. Look at overhead. Our people continue to use it. Now the government has begun to put barriers at an unnecessary expense because people just will not do what they're supposed to do to save their own life. Anybody who has traveled the Lagos...
People always contravene laws. That is what it is.
So government now knows that, fine, I have to help these guys help themselves. So they're now putting structures, so that you can't climb. And I still see people looking for gaps within those structures. Is there a gap here? I think I got this call back from Kaduna. Ebuka in Kaduna, welcome back.
Yes, thank you so much, Uncle. As I was saying there, with the specification, right, that has been answered. Now, let us remember that Kogi State was flooded about 4 years ago or 5 years ago of the same magnitude, all right? And Kogi State and Benue State are in the same plane. And Mr. Femi in the studio is from the Office of the Disaster
Disaster Risk Management of the Office of the Vice President.
Preventive measure debated before now. Anyway, I've been hearing dredging for a long time. They'll dredge River Niger, they'll dredge River Benue, they'll dredge River everything, and nothing is going on. Everything is just talk. Like he's talking now and talking. The federal government is doing this. It is natural that when it rains, if the rain stops, water retreats. Water find its own level. So I don't see any role NEMA agency played in doing that. There's nobody captured them on the TV that they are fully on ground in Benue State. And he's telling me here that they are fully on ground. I do not believe all those things.
So, Ebuka, you seem to be saying we are not doing enough. We're not doing as much as we can do.
Nothing is even done. From what he's saying, nothing is being done. I don't believe what he's saying. We see how proactive the agencies in U.S. is, both in helicopter, both speedboats, chopper, in camp. It is being televised.
Well, okay. I hear you, Mr. Ebuka, but we got to be realistic. I would love to see those helicopters rescuing people all over the place, such as we see on CNN every day.
Because there are funds budgeted for it. That is, I mean,
so what Ebuka is saying is that
the caller's aggression should be taken serious.
Well,
because why I said it should be taken serious because government is not doing enough.
Okay, that seems to be what he's saying.
And
I wonder if it's not being unduly. You see, I would love it, but I wonder if it's not an unfair comparison. I agree with him entirely. I want people to be, lifted off roofs.
We have to be extremely careful about what we are saying.
Okay, one moment.
Because the point is this.
Obasi is in Oturukpo. So sorry, Dr. Sanitolu. Obasi in Oturukpo, good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Thank you for calling in. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, good morning, gentlemen in the studio.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, I've been following your program and it's quite a very nice one. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please continue.
Yes, it's actually a disaster in Benue State. And if I should just chip in a bit.
Sure.
Yes, I have to follow what actually that man on a suit and tie. There was a point he made that was very, very, very critical.
Mr. Evans Ufeli.
You know, most of these issues is better tackled at the roots.
Please continue. We can hear you.
Okay, yes. It's better tackled at the roots in the sense that I believe there are some funds for such disasters like this. Are you getting it? And most times, most of these funds are not being used for what is being proposed for. If these things are being done and put in place, I don't believe we are supposed to be having these issues. I could remember one of the senators, there was one senator, which I don't want to mention name. He said most times people benefit from other people's misfortune. Some people are having issues now, and definitely some people are going to benefit from this. Yet, if these funds are being used appropriately the way it's supposed to be used, we are not supposed to be having these issues.
Okay, all right.
Thank you very much. And sorry, one thing I presume you should be allowing a text messages coming in. I believe it should be a very great one.
We will take that suggestion on board. Thank you very much for calling in. Okay. Are people, is it that people simply do not have all the information they have when you hear people say that, I don't believe what these technocrats come on air and say? Because if, given the resources we know we have, given what we know we are recovering, the stolen property, stolen loot and all of that, the level of assistance that people that are victims of these floods are seeing shouldn't be the case.
That's exactly the point.
I'm now asking Femi, is it that people don't simply know enough? They are not well informed when they make those kind of statements?
You see, they are not well informed. Let's look at the genesis to the top. The genesis, what we are talking about the drainage system. When you look from the primary to the secondary.
Sir,
now, let's move again to
a disaster is beyond drainage system. The systems are overwhelmed.
How we respond to the emergency. Immediately, the situation occurred. The chief executive officer of the place, the governor, announced, passed the communication immediately.
Yes.
To His Excellency, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And the President immediately directed that NEMA, National Emergency Management Agency, should move in. And immediately, look at the timing, immediately the Chief Executive Officer and his team of NEMA moved in. They started doing needs assessment. They started putting a lot of things in place. They started establishing a relief camp. Do you know what it takes to establish a relief camp?
But wouldn't all these kind of things have been planned beforehand?
Look,
I mean, these things are not things you do when the thing has come on board.
Disaster is not something that you are expecting. It is a sudden event. And because
it was prediction.
It's not the first time.
Because
it looks like if this should happen in another state, God forbid, to now say that, people have seen what happened in Benue, people have seen what happened in Lagos, and so even when a drop of rain hasn't fallen, for example, even when one little river hasn't overflown its bank, this needs assessment. People would have planned that if this thing were to happen here, this is what we need to do.
Now, let's come to the basic. That is why the National Emergency Management Agency is building up the State Emergency Management Agency. Look at what happened in Lagos State. When I was the Chief Executive Officer of Lagos State Emergency Management Agency, we have relief camps. As at today, we have relief camps. We've done a risk mapping for Lagos State. We've done a place that we can evacuate people.
That's what I'm talking about.
And
exactly.
See,
that's what I'm talking about.
That is a proactive measure.
That is proactive. And you're using examples of what happened in the past.
Yes.
If this should happen again,
if
this
thing happening again in Lagos State, we have relief camp in Agbawa, they have relief camp in Igondo, and they are building one in Lekki.
So the suggestion is being made that maybe Benue suffered.
That is one of the reasons
from the lack of this.
Listen, that is one of the reasons that the federal government appointed me as a senior technical advisor on disaster risk, and that is why we are scooping and building all the state SEMA to replicate what we have in Lagos to another state. A week ago, I was in Benue, where we are building the capacity of their SEMA. So the NEMA, the presidency has been building SEMA, seriously.
I must squeeze in someone who you know as a colleague, Mr. Adeshina Tiamio. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you for calling in.
Thank you very much.
You, please, you are GM of La SEMA. So you know one or two things about what we're talking about.
Yes, yes.
Please go ahead.
First and foremost, what is important and which Dr. Osoitolu is talking about. Hello?
We can hear you, sir. Please continue.
Yes. It is important for all of us to know that when emergency occurs, we should not look at the responders alone, but all of us as a whole. Now, when these early warning signals comes in, the next step is to disseminate this information to the public. Now, disseminating this information to the public does not lie on government agencies alone. We want to encourage all private sector-driven individuals to also pass this message down the line. Because what is important here is that emergency responders, of course, will come and do their bit. But they also need support. Now, when signals goes up that there will be flooding, for example, in Lagos, there will be flooding around Ajegule, Agboyi, my 12 exit. We want to advise people to move out of that place. You still see people resisting that authority.
It happens all over the world.
The government cannot go in there and force people out.
Yeah.
We will only advise that please move out of this place. La SEMA currently is running some promo on TV and radio about flooding in Lagos and what people should do. We give out this information. It is not enough for all of us to look at government side of this divide.
Okay.
We should also look at what the public should do.
Thank you very much.
The private sector people should also help.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tiamio. Appreciate your calling in. He's a man that always is also on our program now and again whenever there's an emergency. Valuable contribution. We don't have much more time. So I'm sorry to be rushing you like this, Dr. Osoitolu. You won't be able to say much more apart from me to be able to thank you for coming in and just keep our fingers crossed that guys who know what they're doing are in charge, and it will lessen the problem, lessen the suffering, maybe, all that kind of a thing. And also to thank you, Mr. Evans Ofeli. We've completely run out of time, but we thought we should focus on this, and we're very grateful to you, Dr. Osoitolu.
Thank you.
Senior Technical Advisor on Disaster Risk Management, Office of the Vice President of the Federation. That's our program. Dr. Osoitolu wants to say some more, but we can't afford the time. I'll be back, God willing, tomorrow with a fresh edition of the program. I'm Yori Folarin. Bye-bye for now.